And we welcome you to the preview edition of All In for This Is Wrestling. It is Lee Versage along with Zach McGibbon. Zach, it's been a lot of talk for you on Tolkien, on This Is Wrestling, the second episode this week. What is going on a Thursday as we get set for AEW, their biggest show of the year?
Doing good, Lee. Keeping the vocal cords warm, obviously, as doing a lot of audio. But this is obviously a big episode, as he laid out, All In, taking place over the weekend. Looks like we'll have at least over 50,000 people in the building for that. So should be a big show. Looking forward to previewing it here.
And this is a massive card, and I think the expectations are high. When it's your biggest show of the year, expectations are high based off what happened last year in 2024 and the number of people they were able to get in. Before we go through the card in general, have we established that this is their biggest show of the year? It is, their WrestleMania if you're WWE, and your expectations of what this show means compared to even last year of what it was.
Yeah, I would say this has now been established as sort of a tentpole event for AEW, along the vein of, as you mentioned, a WrestleMania for WWE or Wrestle Kingdom for New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is kind of the show that kind of stands out for AEW, and I think you see it as well with the reports of them going to Texas next year with their All In show. So that they certainly have the expectation here that this is the biggest show. A lot of people will be tuning in, so you want to have your best foot forward. And I think in some cases, they definitely have their best foot forward. And it's got some matches that I'm very intrigued to see in that sort of stadium atmosphere. And then there are some others here where I think it's good, but wish it could be a little bit better. But overall, I think the build on the TV over the last couple of weeks has actually been pretty solid when it comes to AEW television and some of the angles that they've put forward. Looking through some of the matches, and obviously we'll get to it. There's some where I personally wouldn't have booked them for this show, but considering how much of the forefront they were on TV, it makes sense for them to be on this pay-per-view. So I'm going in with pretty good excitement. I think there's a lot of good matches here on this card, and I think it should be a fun show. Usually AEW pay-per-views are at worst good when it comes to their outputs, so I expect nothing less than that when it comes to this card on Sunday.
A lot of intrigue. I think that this card has lined up to be one of the best cards that we've seen. I don't know if it follows through and ends up that way, but I do think they've lined it up that way for the Zach McGibbons of the world, I'll call it.
Yes.
Like the pure, let's get a Ring of Honor pure shake hands, do a best 2 of 3, 3 rope grabs.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's get right into it. But
speaking my language.
It feels like this is a show that kind of gets them back on track to where they were, but it doesn't mean that that's where they're going to go. And I think it's really interesting as we lead up here, I'm going to try to make this as much as I can like an AEW sandwich with the 2 pieces of bread. We'll start with the top piece, and then we'll get into all the mushy good middle, and then we'll get to the end piece.
Okay.
Because I think there are, as good as this card is, and you can disagree with me, but I think there are 2 matches that can be the pieces of bread. And I know people loved what the meat and the fixings in the middle, but
yeah.
when you got 2 bookends like this, I think that there's a lot of intrigue. Doesn't mean the rest of the card's going to be bad,
right?
But so I'll start like that, and we'll save the world title until the end. But let's get right into the singles match for the AEW American Championship. Maxwell Jacob Friedman and Will by God Ospreay. Did I do that okay?
I think it was pretty solid.
Okay, good. It's a match that I'm, for so many reasons, looking forward to. How do you think the buildup has been for this, for both of these guys over the summer to get to this point? And then what do you think happens?
I think the build to this has been really strong. I wasn't expecting them to do the second match here at All In. I thought they would do it for Dynamite, and we were going to lead to an MJF Daniel Garcia program, but it looks like Daniel Garcia is still kind of deciding his future when it comes to the company and if he's going to stay with AEW. But with that sort of different trajectory that the feud has gone, I've really enjoyed it. I think the feud has been really good. That promo that they had last night on Dynamite was so good. It was such a tremendous segment. Both guys laying out their intentions and what this match means to them, and obviously being in Wembley. And I thought it was just Will Ospreay was going toe-to-toe with MJF on the mic, I thought, quite well. And they've really put over this American Championship quite well and gotten some good heat on it from the work of MJF. We're just getting closer and closer to that MJF that I remember from the start of AEW 2019 to 2022. I don't think we're there quite yet. There's still this, I for lack of a better term, genuineness that I'm waiting for with MJF. That is, I think, is there, but he hasn't really tapped into it like he did in the early parts of the AEW run. But we're still getting some great stuff here from him. And Ospreay has just been delivering since this feud has began, since he's joined the company, really. When it comes to the match itself and who I think is going to win, I think it's going to be a Will Ospreay win here. I think it makes sense at Wembley to take the title from MJF the way that it's kind of built upon this. And there are sort of other avenues. Maybe we do see Daniel Garcia make a return. I mentioned that he was still kind of on the outs. Maybe it opens up a potential here for Garcia to make a return and reignite that feud with MJF. You put the belt back on Ospreay, and you continue to have him go on a bit of a run. You have that big focus with him winning a belt at All In. I think it just makes a lot of sense for him to win here. And especially when we talk about big matches on big shows, sometimes I don't want to fall too much into the WWE moments sort of thinking, but I've always been a big proponent of when you have big shows like a WrestleMania and you have these big feuds, I follow the philosophy that you want to make sure you have the big baby face win on here. And so I think this is one of those scenarios where you have the big baby face victory in the front of the home crowd, keeps Ospreay hot, and MJF will not be hurt at all, taking a loss here. So I've got Will Ospreay winning this.
And the philosophy is interesting, right? Because we've seen in, say, the WWE in previous years, specifically, I think of Edge beating Cena in Boston and Cena beating Edge in Toronto, where each guy takes a big loss in their hometown. Is there something? Both guys are as Teflon as you can be right now. I think. I don't think there are many people that can both go into a match, can both take a loss, and both be just fine afterwards. But these are two of them. So I guess I'll ask you before I tell you what I think. If it goes the other way, is that okay? Like, not that you would like it, but is it okay that MJF beats Will Ospreay at Wembley and gets that in his, like, a feather in his cap, and talks about it all the time, and Will Ospreay, continues to chase that title before he finally gets it maybe again down the road?
If it was clean, I don't think I would like it that much. I don't think it would work that well. With MJF's matches, we always see him find a way to cheat, and it's weird with his matches in a good way that he finds ways to cheat to win, but yet they feel very satisfying because that's the MJF character and it makes sense for him to do stuff like that. So if they did something like that and wanted to continue the feud, I don't think I'd be too opposed to it, but I think you got to look at the upsides here in terms of what can be accomplished with either guy winning, and I think the upside is just way higher for Ospreay winning here. So I could see the point of, you know, depending on how they do it, of MJF winning, then I don't think Ospreay would all of a sudden, you know, descend into the pits of jobberism or anything like that. He'd be just fine, but I like the upside more of him winning than I do MJF winning, so that's why I've got him. And plus, too, in the promo yesterday, they've been talking about the feeling in AEW and trying to restore the feeling. When you're invoking stuff like that, and you've got MJF going against him and cutting off that feeling, I don't know. It might be just me looking too deep into it and looking at the symbolism of it, but I don't think that would be the greatest look. So I've got Ospreay winning here.
Okay. And the reason I asked is because I agree with you. I think by both guys winning can be fine, but I really like what they've done to prop this title up. And this is another good example of the guys or girls holding a title can make a title. It doesn't have to be the world title. And this title feels important because MJF has it and he's wrestling Will Ospreay for it. And it feels important at that point. So I'm like you. I don't think it's clear cut. And I can see, like, if you give me a reasonable argument for what you're going to do with MJF down the line and continue to hold the American Championship and continue to defend it against international guys, and you have a plan in place, you know, for him to carry that longer, I would hear that argument for sure. But I think he got plans for the world title that don't involve Will Ospreay right now. And if they don't involve Will Ospreay, put another title on him, like we talked about, defend it around the world, defend it against everyone. People will go and pay to see Will Ospreay defend a title. And that, I think, is really important for AEW here in the next, you know, few months as they try to reestablish multiple things that people care about. And you can always have Will Ospreay as an international title holder challenge for a world title, or find someone else that, you know, ends up beating him and then he goes into the world title picture. I also think MJF at some point should re-enter the world title picture. So I'm not 100% convinced on this pick, but I am going to pick Will Ospreay because in the end, what big moment are you giving the fans of Wembley? Because I hate, and I hope AEW has learned their lesson, I hate when we get and I hate to pick on the WWE, but like, we're going to France, we're going to Australia, we're going to Saudi Arabia, we're going to, where was the other one that they went to with the huge crowd?
They're going to go to Germany. That was Germany. What I was going to say.
No, but like the crazy crowd. There was one in France and then
there's one in Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yeah. So, but then you get like a women's tag title change to send them home happy.
Right.
And it's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Or Rhea Ripley defending against Nia Jax in the main event of 50,000 people. Like, come on. Like, what are you giving people to really have them go home happy? And the answer is two things, and they're the bread of the sandwich. Honestly, that's what they really are. And it's two guys winning. And we'll talk about the other guy later on in the program, but one of them is Will Ospreay. And I think you give him this moment and you let him prop up another title to make it really important. And MJF will be just fine. And so it's a match, Zach, that I'm looking forward to a ton.
Me too.
I really, really am. So let's just now go and we'll go through a couple of other ones. Let's go to Jack Perry and Darby Allin in a coffin match. I'm telling you right now, Zach, that I know he changed the title and he made it look all cool for him, and he's the guy that they've invested in, and I'm still missing something. Doesn't mean he hasn't improved. I think he's improved, but I'm still missing sort of that it factor with Jack Perry. Can he get it with a win in a coffin match over Darby Allin? I don't really give Darby Allin any chance in this match. I think it's going to be hopefully a good match, but what I'm looking for more than that, I think Jack Perry is going to retain. I'm looking for that elevation of where I know that Darby Allin can go, and I know that he's going to do some crazy spots, and I know that he's going to be this daredevil. But what I don't know is if Jack Perry can honestly keep up with him. And when you finish the match, you're like, there are two stars in the ring. Because right now, when I see them enter on Sunday, there's one star in the ring and one trying to be a star. And you're in front of 50,000 people and you're in a coffin match and you're with a guy that was another one of the pillars and he's turned into a star and they invested a ton in you. I don't know that it's like make or break, but I need Jack Perry to do something here to really impress me. I think he's going to win regardless, but we'll see if he wins in my mind when it comes to how this match finishes and how he looks.
I've made the mistake before of not picking Jack Perry, and it has come back to bite me in a catastrophic way.
Please take Darby Allin.
I'm not going to pick Darby Allin. I'm also picking Jack Perry. I think, as you mentioned, this is kind of the stage is set for him. They've also mentioned on commentary how he's been dominant in this kind of match. And what I've noticed with AEW is that they love having their guys that are synonymous with their match stipulations be the ones that win their match stipulations, i.e. Hangman Page winning, I think, all of his Texas Death matches that he's in. I think this is going to continue here with Jack Perry. I think he's going to retain the championship. Darby Allin's one of those guys that, you know, we talk about guys that could take losses, they'll be fine. I look at Darby Allin and I see that, where he's a guy that could take a loss and be totally fine. I think Jack Perry is a good in-ring wrestler and has had matches on pay-per-view where he's delivered. But like what you mentioned, that star power, that it factor when it comes to Jack Perry that they so want from him to be that guy, it just hasn't been able to resonate through, whether it just be like presence or the character that he has. And like what you mentioned, he has improved in terms of his look and his promo ability, but that doesn't mean he is a guy. So like what you've been saying, I agree with a lot with what you're saying. This is going to be a big match for him to kind of showcase himself. I think in-ring wise, he will deliver. And I think he's going to get the victory here.
Chris Jericho with Big Bill against Hook for the World Championship. No, that's the name of the belt.
That's
for
right.
For the World Championship, not for the World Championship. For the World Championship. If Hook loses, he can never challenge again as long as Jericho is champion. I want Hook to be in spots where he can elevate and look really good. And I still don't know, like, with all due respect, and I love Chris Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
I love Chris Jericho. But I don't know that being in the ring with Chris Jericho is going to help Hook in this spot. I think it makes more sense for Jericho with the learning tree and his guys to be able to retain, and Hook almost goes on a, like, somebody else ends up beating Jericho for this belt because of Hook, because he can't challenge. And that's a storyline I think you could do down the line. But again, I kind of need Hook away from this for the world championship anyway. Like, I want to see him at the next level. Like, I want to see him legitimately in the TNT title picture, or, you know, going up against the Jack Perrys and the Darby Allins. Like, I feel like he's not quite there yet. And I want him to be there. I just don't know that this is going to help him, that it helps him to get this belt back, because I think it stagnates him again in the same kind of place. So I'm going to pick Chris Jericho in this one.
Really? You're going to pick Jericho here?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, the guy loses all the time, right? Like, I know he beat the Dynamite Kid, Tommy Billington, on Dynamite this past Wednesday. That hot upstart Dynamite Kid, just cutting off the legs of the Dynamite Kid, was Chris Jericho, right? Because he is a hog of the star power and spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
Hook's gonna win this match here. This is a big stage. You know how Jericho is. I keep pointing it out every time. They've extended this feud a long time. I think Hook will beat Chris Jericho here and get his belt back. He will beat Chris Jericho. He'll get his belt back and then walk to the back, and we'll continue on with a new story. And Chris Jericho will once again be the modern day Hulk Hogan of the professional wrestling industry.
Okay.
I've got Hook winning.
A disagreement on that one. Let's get to the 4-way London ladder match, because it's not just a ladder match. It's a London ladder match.
That's right.
I guess because it's in London.
Yeah. Are the championships going to be hanging from Big Ben? Is that why it's called a London ladder match?
And our ladder matches now in AEW, whatever city they're in. Like, if they're in Ottawa, is it an Ottawa ladder match?
That's very true. Maybe a Lansdowne ladder match.
Okay.
To do the alliteration, you know?
Well, I was guessing on a fourth team and all kinds of things, and I was very underwhelmed. However, the Patriarchy with Christian Cage and Kill Switch and Nick Wayne go up against the Bang Bang Gang, the House of Black, and the Blackpool Combat Club, minus Jon Moxley, but included with Pac, for the AEW World Trios Championship. Sorry for the spoiler on Collision coming up in a couple of days. But this is a preview show, and we got to preview the actual matches. And I thought it would be somebody else. I thought maybe Bobby Lashley and the Hurt Business. I thought it could have been Death Triangle. This doesn't, I'm very underwhelmed in this. We'll see. I understand getting all these people onto the card because it makes them a lot of money. And I get from that standpoint why it happens at WrestleMania, why it happens at All In. Everybody wants to. I got a real difficult time with some of the people that are in this match thinking 12 guys are going to be able to work cohesively together. And you're going to walk away from this going, oh, what a match that was with 12 guys in it. Some of me feels like this could be a very big moment at home in AEW London for a London ladder match for the Blackpool Combat Club and Pac and some of the European heritage that those guys have. Some of me wants to pick them, but most of me thinks the Trios Championship matters and have been presented better with the Patriarchy than they have been in a long time. That's my opinion. I happen to really like Christian Cage, but I think what he's done with it, being a referee between the other guys, I think they've elevated those titles a little bit to make them okay. These guys come out and it means something, and they got good teams chasing them with the House of Black, Blackpool Combat Club, and the Bang Bang Gang. I think it makes sense for the patriarchy to keep them, but do they give a moment for Pac and Claudio and Wheeler Yuta? I don't know. I'm kind of split on it, but if I had to pick, I'm going to pick the patriarchy to retain.
Before I get into my thoughts on the match and who I think is going to win, I need to ask this question, Lee. Why is this match here and not the Kazuchika Okada Claudio Castagnoli match for the Continental Crown Championship? I need to know why.
Okay, well, I just explained it to you that instead of one match paying two guys getting paid, 12 guys can go into one match and get paid, and all the pay-per-view bonuses and being able to be on the big show and not hurt feelings and all of those things that should not come into play, but do come into play on the biggest shows of the year. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say to you that that's the answer, even though it's not right.
Yes.
And I hate to keep spoiling things for people, but since Kazuchika Okada and Claudio is not on, it ends up being on this week, right? And what happened, Zach?
It was a time limit draw.
Oh, good.
Yes. I like the match. I quite like the match.
You like the ending?
I understood the ending. I got it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I understood it.
Well, what do you understand about it? It's just delaying. Hey, we're going to do this and have nothing be accomplished.
Well, here's my point here, Lee, what I'm trying to make. Why is Kazuchika Okada one of the greatest professional wrestlers to ever walk this planet? Right? Am I off base on saying this?
No, you're not.
The man who has headlined dome shows across, granted in Japan, but he's headlined the Tokyo Dome multiple times and is known for big matches in front of big crowds. And you want to showcase the best that AEW has going forward, and he's not even on your dome show? You save him for Dynamite in a time limit draw? One of the greatest professional wrestlers to ever walk on this planet is not on this show. I don't care if Austin Gunn's feelings are hurt, he's not on the card. You put Kazuchika Okada on your dome show.
I'm glad you didn't use Colton. I'm very, very concerned.
I don't care if Buddy Matthews has hurt feelings, or Kill Switch, or Mother Wayne. You put Kazuchika Okada on your dome show, especially when he's a champion. He holds a belt. And you already booked him against another guy in Claudio Castagnoli, where people would go, oh, that's a match I want to see on my dome show. But no, he's not even on the card. What are we doing here? Do we really need another ladder match? Another ladder match where every time it happens on a pay-per-view, people go, oh, the spots were great and this was fun and blah, blah, blah. And then we forget about the match for the next however many months. Never gets discussed again because it was a ladder match on a card. And it was just so that you could get a little fun segment. I don't deny that we'll probably get some big spots in this because the guys in there, they'll see it as an opportunity. And I for sure think that Nick Wayne, who is not even 20, if I recall, is going to look at this opportunity and say, I got a chance here to showcase myself in front of 50,000 people, and I'm going to do some crazy spots. I do not deny that. I'm sure there'll be some great spots. But if you want the best wrestling show, sitting out one of the greatest, let me emphasize this again, one of the greatest professional wrestlers to ever walk on this planet, is not on your show with over 50,000 people in attendance. I could care less about your hurt feelings. You're not Kazuchika Okada, and you don't deserve to be on the show because you're not one of the best wrestlers on the planet. All that to say, the Patriarchy retaining their World Trios Championship is my pick.
The standing ovation right there. Standing ovation. The sermon. Well done. It's hard to disagree with any of that. And even if I told you that, don't worry, he'll be in the Casino Gauntlet match, it doesn't matter. He's not being advertised in a prime spot. He is your Continental champion, and one of the best wrestlers on the planet is not on, or one of the most known worldwide is not on the card, or is not being advertised specifically or individually. So tough to argue with any of that. And then you followed my pick.
Yes.
Nice.
We got the Patriarchy retaining.
All right, so let's talk about the Casino Gauntlet match for a future AEW World Championship match. There's only one person for me who I believe really wins this match, but I'm interested in your thoughts.
I think we share the same person. I'm going with Hangman Page winning this.
I'd be blown away if Hangman Page does not win this match.
Yes. There is one other person that's a dark horse, and it was just announced, reported, I guess I should say, as we're recording this.
Ricochet?
Yes, he has signed a multi-year deal with AEW and is reportedly in the area. There is a chance that if they want to establish him right away, that they have him win this gauntlet, and then he be the next title contender. And I think that could be fun. Ricochet, I know he's been in WWE for a long time, and so people have forgotten just how good this guy is in the ring when given a chance to showcase his abilities. So I wouldn't hate it, but I think the storyline here that they're presenting is Hangman Page winning, and I think he's going to go on to face the winner of Swerve Strickland and Bryan Danielson, which I'm looking forward to our respective picks on that. But I feel like this is a Hangman or bust pick here for the gauntlet.
Do you feel like if Hangman Page wins this match, you start leaning to one side more than the other in the main event?
No.
Okay. Good. I do kind of feel that way, but I hope to be wrong. But I think there's a lot to talk about with that main event. There really is. So we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But let's go through some of the others. And, a match that I've been looking forward to for a long time, Mercedes Moné, Britt Baker, the AEW TBS Championship. Another example where I think that the two wrestlers wrestling for the TBS Championship are more prominent and bigger than those that are wrestling for the Women's World Championship. However, I don't want to take away from the other two women that are wrestling for the AEW Women's World Championship, but for Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker, I want to ask you about Britt Baker for a second.
Sure.
Look, they're just rumors and things that you read, but I came on here and told you that would we see Britt Baker and Adam Cole against MJF and Alicia Atu? Would we see that play out on screen? Not necessarily like a mixed tag match, but would we see that scenario play out? Because reportedly there were problems behind the scenes with Britt Baker and Alicia Atu, interviewer for AEW and MJF's girlfriend. There were rumors as well, or certainly some innuendo, that Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter had some issues. Do you think Britt Baker is somebody that can even if these things aren't true, they are being said. So can she overcome it, or do you think that this might be an issue for her in this company?
It's tough to say. There's always going to be people in wrestling companies that don't like each other. We know as well that Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa also had some issues with each other that ended up being hashed out. So I don't know what more I can really look into with the Britt Baker stuff with the, as you mentioned, the talks of the rift between her and Jamie Hayter, or what happened with the MJF incident and Alicia Toot. So I guess my only thing with her in terms of the backstage stuff is, could it leak here where maybe they were thinking about Britt Baker putting the belt on Mercedes Moné, but with all that's kind of been going around, and to kind of send a message that we're not going to reward bad behavior, we're going to keep the belt on Mercedes Moné. I wouldn't rule that out at all. I know she already had the suspension. She was off of TV for a few weeks. But if they wanted to send a message, say, hey, we're not going to tolerate this in our locker room, and if they wanted to do that big moment with Britt Baker getting the belt on a big show, but then take it away, I could see that happening. I think with her, I think it's something that we got to hear a little bit more info on, like what are the root issues of this heat? Why are people upset with Britt when it comes to that? And that's something with, when CM Punk was in AEW, we started to learn more and more about what his issues were and how he was getting frustrated with AEW management, with the Bucks and all that. With her, it's still kind of, it seems like there's just been a couple of issues, and as of now, they're resolved. I feel like we just need to know more about the root causes of this. As for this match, I still feel like Britt Baker's going to get a victory here and get the win over Mercedes Moné. It's just a feeling I have, but I think it is kind of a coin flip between the two. I could see them continuing on with Mercedes Moné and having her have a lengthier TBS title reign, but they could also look into, again, babyface in terms of the audience and presented on TV, getting a big championship win in front of a big crowd, especially with somebody who has been the face of your women's division since the beginning. Having her have that big moment at one of your biggest shows, I think means something. And so I'm leaning towards Britt Baker getting the victory.
Okay. And while I agree with you, I do think it's a coin flip. I don't think that you can convince me either side it's 100% and this is a lock. I think you could go either way.
Yep.
On this match. I like Mercedes Moné in this match. I think introducing Camille into the fold and then having her lose right away, I don't think does a lot for Camille. I don't think it does a lot for Mercedes Moné, which would be a pretty short run. Correct me if I'm wrong. She won in June.
Yes. May or June.
So I think establishing her with the title, I think establishing Camille and the fact that Britt Baker could feud with Camille and kind of work her way back up as being the babyface chaser to get another shot. I also think it would be really interesting if Britt Baker lost to involve herself in the AEW Women's World Championship scene and actually win at some point, not too far down the road, and to have Mercedes still hanging on to the belt. And now you got a full rematch for, two women with two belts. I think there's a lot of intrigue there if he ends up doing something like that. So I'm going to pick Mercedes Moné to retain, but I'm not convinced of it. I certainly could see them giving Britt Baker the moment.
Yep.
But it makes sense to me to establish Mercedes Moné a little bit longer as one of the top, and then as well as Camille. I think getting her over right now means that she's the bodyguard of the champion. She's not the bodyguard of a challenger.
Yep.
So I do like, and just to throw in back, and I'm not going back to the Casino Gauntlet, but just because we're talking about this, I know there's a lot of talk about Ricochet. Is there a chance we see Adam Cole in this Casino Gauntlet, and is there a chance he wins it for a future AEW World Championship match? I think that's another interesting angle. Okay, time with Tony Storm. Mariah May for the AEW Women's World Championship. I haven't loved the build for this. Tony Storm is better than you have, and the gimmick is better than some of the things that you've talked about over the past few months. Mm-hmm. But to me, also to your point, I think she's stagnated now, and I need a resurgence here. And so I am going to pick Mariah May to win the AEW Women's World Championship. I think it puts her on an elite level that I'm not sure she's in yet. And I think she's got a lot of capability of holding that title and making it interesting. And then you can not rebrand, but you can kind of heat Tony Storm back up, because I'm kind of blah on her right now.
And I'm not as high up on Mariah May as others are either. I don't think she's knocked it out of the park when it comes to this feud either. I thought the one angle that they did when Mariah May finally turned heel and went after Tony Storm was such a great angle. It was so different from everything that was being presented with that Women's World Championship. And I was like, all right, we're in. We got a heated feud. And then since then, I've really felt it's just kind of tapered off. And I think the chances that Mariah May has been given to try and showcase herself, to be on her own, I think wrestling-wise, she's there, but some of the promos are just not there yet in terms of her taking that next step to being a legitimate contender for the championship. And in the case of Tony Storm, I agree with you. Obviously, I'm much harsher on the gimmick than others are. I still could do without it on my television screen, to be honest, but the way that they've kind of continued on with this, and obviously the story wise, I get it. They're telling a story here. They're building it up, and there are people that are invested in it. I'm not going to deny that. But to be honestly, some of the people trying to defend this to me sound like some of the WWE fans that defend some of the other storylines that happen to their company. So all that to say, I think the way that they've been trying to do this story has been to establish Mariah May. And I think in this, what better way to establish her than go all the way and have her win the championship at Wembley, take the belt off of Tony Storm, and you've done this arc of a story here, culminating in Mariah May getting the belt back. And like what you mentioned, it kind of gives a new direction for Tony Storm on where to go. And in theory, you got a new player in the women's division in Mariah May as she establishes the glamour gimmick. So, this story has not been for me. I think the one angle that they did for the turn was awesome, like legitimately a fantastic angle, but they just not have been able to capitalize on that since then. And it's really kind of gone down and down each week for me ever since that angle. But having said all that, I still think this will get some reactions in the building, and I think Mariah May is going to get the victory.
Only a couple left. I don't necessarily want to talk about Stokely Hathaway in the ring. I know Ishii you probably want to talk about, but that's on 0 hour.
You have Tomohiro Ishii coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you put him in.
Willow Nightingale and Tomohiro Ishii against Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway.
I have enjoyed some of the character stuff that Stokely Hathaway has been doing on Twitter to get ready for his match. Talked about doing a corkscrew shooting star press in the match, which got me laughing. But again, this is one of those deals where it's like, yes, they're telling a story here. I think Statlander and Nightingale are two tremendous wrestlers, and this match will have the winning team choose the stipulation for their match at All Out, which is what it looks like here for the stipulations. So it all makes sense. I'm not denying that it doesn't make sense or anything like that. There's a logical story being told here. I just am not the biggest fan of what's being utilized here. I really like Stokely Hathaway. Big fan of his, actually. I think he's a tremendous manager. I think I even said on the show, I think he's the best manager in wrestling. And because he's just a very entertaining character, and I think in the right spot, and I think they finally found it with Chris Statlander. They could get a gimmick over. I just don't love the positioning of Tomohiro Ishii here. Again, a tremendous wrestler, goes out there, is going to deliver, and this is the match you have him in there with against Stokely Hathaway. So,
well, and it makes sense as well that Statlander and Hathaway will win. No,
I that's what it feels like to me. Statlander and Hathaway. Obviously, Statlander getting the pin and Hathaway doing the jumping. Like, yeah, I did something in the match. Like, yeah. I see it. I see the vision. I think they're gonna get the victory here.
All right, let's talk about why they put the Acclaimed in this match. The Young Bucks and FTR and the Acclaimed in a 3-way tag team match of the AEW World Tag Team Championship. Oh man. I just don't understand, I guess, as a lead in to our thoughts. I don't understand. Like, I go into this match thinking it's possible that it could be good. The Young Bucks are really good. FTR really good. And they can bring the Acclaimed along. They can hit a couple of spots. And I can leave the match going, that was okay. That was pretty good. But would I say that anything that can happen in this match would be better than just the Young Bucks against FTR? And my answer is no. And almost like 0%. I don't care what happens in this match. I don't think at the end of it, I'm going to be able to say that was actually better or would have been better than just the Young Bucks and FTR. So I'm a little disappointed that they're in here. And I'm also starting to get very worried that they're going to win. So
tell us, Lee, how are you feeling?
I don't think FTR are going to win. I think the Acclaimed are going to win. I just, it makes more sense to me to have them win with the push that they've been getting than just have the Bucks sort of retain and continue on the same gimmick over and over. And I'd love to see the belts on FTR, but I just don't know that it makes a whole bunch of sense. I hope I'm wrong. I do. I'm just trying to tell you that if I had to place a little bit of money, and it's what I really think, I guess I think the Acclaimed somehow are going to win this match. And I want desperately to be wrong about it. But anyway, I just feel like by adding them in, I'm not going to get what I would have gotten if they didn't add them in. Does that make sense?
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. I don't see FTR winning. I see it either being the Bucks retaining or the Acclaimed getting the belts. And like you, I'm out on the Acclaimed. I enjoyed their gimmick, but when it was first coming up, I thought it was a funny gimmick. Just the idea of those two guys in rockabilly being part of a group in 2024. It teased me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. But there is the thought that's creeping in the back of my head. Like, man, these are AEW homegrown guys. They're in a title match. Showcase, this is AEW's show and AEW's guys getting a big victory at the show. It's hovering around, but I'm going to say the Bucks retain. I think last year it was Bucks and FTR won that match. I think it's now going to go the opposite way, and I think it's going to go the Bucks getting the victory here. And I think they're going to pin one of the members of FTR and protect the Acclaimed. That's just how I'm feeling right now. But the Acclaimed's chances are not zero. I will say that. But the Bucks are going to retain is my pick.
Okay. Tell me where it leaves the Acclaimed after this big push to get into this match somehow if they don't win? Like, where does it leave them?
I think with them not getting a pin, like kind of how I laid out, I think they're going to go. That's been a feud that they've been pushing on TV, the Bucks and the Acclaimed. So I feel like that would continue because it must continue, Lee, based on what we've been seeing on TV. So I think they'll still be in the title hunt and feuding with the Bucks, because I also think too they're committed to this authority thing with the Bucks through and through. Even though I think they should be dropping this authority thing with the Bucks too. But I think they're so far in at this point that they've got to continue to see this through. And I think for that to kind of continue to see through, and I know there's been talk in recent weeks about how much the Bucks have wrestled on TV, but I still think they're going to hold the championships coming out of All In.
Okay, Zach, main event time. Bryan Danielson's career is on the line in the main event against Swerve Strickland. Title versus career to close out the show. They could have done a lot of different things with this world title match, but I'm not disappointed. I think that there's some legitimacy to both guys winning, both guys losing, where the story goes. We've talked a lot on this show about Bryan Danielson. You think he's going to wrestle till he's 95 or 105 or whatever that is?
150. So, that's when he'll wrestle.
Okay, so let's understand kind of what the ramifications are with Bryan Danielson's career. I'll ask you first, and I think I know the answer, but if this isn't your pick, I'm just saying, if he loses, do you think it's the last time we see Bryan Danielson?
Yes, I do. They are very much holding to stipulations in AEW. They hold firm on them, and that's why the build to this has kind of got people hooked in, because they stick with their stipulations when it comes to, you go all the way back to Cody losing his match for the title and then never challenging for the world championship again. They've built that trust there when it comes to the stipulation. And so if Danielson loses the way that he's been talking, and I know that there's the meme out there of him saying he loves to lie, he loves to work, but I have a feeling that if Danielson does lose here, that's probably it. So, yes, is the answer to that.
All right. Do you like the build up for this match from both sides?
Yes. I think they've done a tremendous job with building this up and creating some intrigue and getting people talking and thinking about the possibilities of what could come out of this match. And I think that, especially, again, the promo on Dynamite this past Wednesday, I thought Swerve cut a great promo, and then I thought Danielson cut a very fiery, passionate promo talking about how he's the best effing wrestler in the world. Loved it. I think it's all coming together here at this show. I really enjoy the way that this is built up. There was a lot of panic when this was initially announced because there wasn't that pre-established history between the two. But the panic was way too quick, because it's like, well, you still got 5 weeks of TV or something when it was announced that they were doing this match to get a build in here. And I thought the build that they put into this match has been tremendous. I think it shows in ticket sales as well, when, we were down to like 45,000 for All In. As the show got closer, more tickets were being sold. It looks like we'll get to 50 to 55,000 here for All In on Sunday. So I think from a box office perspective, it's also been a success. So I think everything that they've done here to at least have that slither of doubt that Danielson would either win or lose, it's still very much up in the air for a lot of fans. I think they've done a real tremendous job of the build of this.
Okay, so what do you think happens?
Bryan Danielson's winning the title here. I think they're all trying to get you to look one way I mentioned Hangman Page winning the gauntlet. And so people might be hearing, well, what? That doesn't make sense, Zach. You picked Hangman Page to win the gauntlet. Obviously, the natural thing to do next for his title match would be against Swerve Strickland, but I think there's an even better story you could do here with that. I think Danielson's going to win the belt. I think he's going to get a big crowning moment in front of that crowd. One of the big things that's synonymous with Bryan Danielson, is him winning at WrestleMania 30 in front of a big crowd. I think they want to recapture that moment and have people thinking this is the last match, and oh my gosh, people are shocked Danielson has the belt here, and I don't think it's going to hurt Swerve at all. I think he has grown a lot. He was somebody that I had doubts with at the beginning of his title reign on if he could be a guy. And I was somebody even before that that's like, I think he's got the potential. Let's see where he goes. And I think he's met it. I think he's a guy that when he loses the belt, he'll still be a main player in AEW. And in fact, I wouldn't be shocked to see him get back in the title picture pretty shortly after. So I've got Danielson winning. I think the way that Danielson thinks about how he wants his last match to go is not in front of a big crowd. I think it's in front of either his hometown fans in Washington or at an indie with 250 people. That's just how Danielson thinks. And I think that's how he would want his career to end, and we all know it. And so I think they're going to do this short little program here with Danielson as the champion. And I think we're going to get Hangman and Danielson at the All Out show. And I think it continues to go into this story of how Hangman, he thinks he's so close to getting to Swerve Strickland and finally getting his comeuppance, but then it gets taken away and he's not able to take the belt from Swerve at All Out. Instead, he has a different challenger in Bryan Danielson, and you could extend that Swerve Hangman storyline even further and really kind of juice it, because I think you could really build that up for a while. You don't have to rush it into All Out. So I've got Danielson winning here based on, I think these are hard stipulations, and to me, I would be very disappointed if they would go back. I know that our AEW hardcore fan, Ben Sublier, has been talking about a heel turn and all that. I would be very disappointed in AEW if they went back on a stipulation like this, because I think they've got something working here and it would help for future matches. And I just don't see, I've seen the idea of Nigel McGuinness or something being thrown around. I just don't see that being a main event Wembley angle. I just don't see that. I see that as a great pay-per-view angle in terms of your arena shows or whatever, but I'm just caught up on the Wembley side of things. So I think they're giving Danielson a short title reign. I think they're going to have him hold it until Wrestle Dream, and I think it's going to be Swerve and Danielson again at Wrestle Dream, and then you got Swerve getting the belt back, and I think you just extend this Hangman and Swerve storyline even further. I think you could really build this up for a long time and really get people salivating, wanting that match. So that's how I kind of view this main event.
Okay. I think it's great to have doubts going into a main event.
Absolutely.
Of a big show. It's been a while since I think a lot of us have had doubts on any show about who is actually going to win the main event. Because I think a lot of that, like with the WWE, I mean, they obviously got it right with Cody waiting that year and then winning, Zach. But it's been very, very predictable. Not bad, but predictable. And then with AEW, there's been a little bit less than that, but I think we were all pretty sure that Swerve Strickland was going to beat Samoa Joe. And MJF was leaving for surgery, and we knew that he was going to lose. And like, this is the first main event, and correct me if I'm wrong, and think back to the last actual like main event for a world title with either of the companies that was like legitimately in doubt. Like, we could have a rational discussion on either person winning, and we didn't know who was going to win. I can't remember the last time. I just feel like with the world title in both companies, it's been decent, but it's been a while. Would I be correct on that or no?
Oh, you'd be definitely correct on that.
Okay. I don't know who's going to win because I love that I don't know who's going to win. I agree with you. I think they've been pretty good with the stipulations and holding true, which is what earns trust with fans. And I also think that Tony Khan loves calling his proudest moment with Sting and the way that he treated Sting. And what's he going to do here with Bryan Danielson and the way he's going to treat Bryan Danielson if it really is near the end? Giving him a moment and a send off and everything else. So I believe in those two things a lot. However, I also believe that Swerve Strickland is a really good world title holder right now and got a big win over Will Ospreay. But a win over Bryan Danielson in the main event of All In, going on to a feud, no matter what that feud is, puts him at another level. And then you can convince me that Bryan Danielson loses, puts his boots in the ring, and does get attacked by Nigel McGuinness. Crowd would go crazy. What's Nigel McGuinness's theme song again?
You'll have to remind me, unfortunately. I'm blanking.
Isn't it London Bridge is falling down?
I believe you're correct.
Okay. I think we need to be careful of getting caught up in two Wembley moments.
Yep.
A Will Ospreay Wembley moment and a Bryan Danielson Wembley moment. And do we actually think that both are going to happen? I think you need to ask yourself that going into the show. And the answer might be yes. But I'm also not sure about that. And I'm unsure that there would be two Wembley moments. So I can convince myself that the Wembley moment's going to be Will Ospreay's and that Bryan Danielson is going to lose and he's going to put his boots and everyone's going to be crying. And you got Swerve Strickland on another level actually beating him. It'll be a fantastic match.
Yes.
Every it will be, and that's the thing. The match will be amazing. And then we're kind of gone down this Bryan Danielson's neck. It's trashed anyway. And then Nigel McGuinness completely takes him out. And Nigel McGuinness stands over Bryan Danielson in the middle of Wembley. That's a big moment. It's a big moment for Nigel. It's a big moment for Bryan Danielson. And knowing Bryan Danielson the way that, well, we think we do, and we don't know him, but he seems to be a guy who really understands his roots. You mentioned whether it's in a 250 person indie hall or in front of 50 or 60,000 people. I think he really cares about others in the business. And the very, very long history of Nigel McGuinness and Bryan Danielson. Nigel McGuinness has been through a lot. I mean, you only have to watch the doc that was put out, which doesn't even tell the whole story. But the doc was fantastic about how he was in, and he basically, it was a documentary about somebody not obtaining their dream. Right? Like it was about that he should have made it, but he didn't. And it doesn't mean like, oh, he got to commentate and he got to do some other really, really cool things. But he was supposed to be Bryan Danielson. It was supposed to be the both of them. And they were both supposed to climb to the ranks and have the success that Bryan Danielson has. But they both didn't get there. And I know that's life and things happen to people and not everybody can do it. But I think Bryan Danielson really, truly cares about Nigel McGuinness and getting Nigel McGuinness a major, major moment. And the fact that Nigel McGuinness has been rolling around in the ring for 18 months and saying that the only person he would ever face is Bryan Danielson. I can come out of this show with I could come out of this show and tell you that Hangman goes and cashes in his match and beats Swerve Strickland. How about that?
Whoa.
I could. And then I could tell you that Hangman Page going off as world champion and Nigel McGuinness attacking Bryan Danielson. A lot going on in the main event, but I just think that there's some big possibilities here. But I think underneath it all, Bryan Danielson wants to do good for the business and he wants to do good for people that he respects for a long time. And this allows Bryan Danielson to go be with his daughter and have Nigel McGuinness be front and center, have a massive moment on a pay-per-view. If he comes out and does this and leaves Bryan Danielson laying and doesn't let his boots sit in the middle of the ring, do you think he's going to get a massive ovation? Of course he is. And even though it's Bryan Danielson, people love Nigel McGuinness over there. And then Bryan Danielson's lost. His career is over, but he never got to put his boots in the ring. And all Nigel McGuinness gets to do now is go on television and beat the bloody hell out of people and say, I am getting Bryan Danielson back in the ring. I don't care what I have to do it. And we've seen that angle a ton where guys retire and then they do everything they possibly can to make it so like the guy actually still wants to honor the code and the stipulation, but now he has no choice and the management have no choice but to do this. And so there's a lot of time for Nigel McGuinness to try and drag Bryan Danielson out of retirement to get that one last match. All that said, I think both angles, both ways, or any way that this goes, I think can be really, really well done.
Yep.
And I'm really excited about that because I'm going into a main event that I don't know who's going to win. And I actually, between 3 or 4 different directions, I legitimately don't know what direction they're going to choose. I think that's awesome. I really, really do. I'm going to pick Swerve Strickland to retain.
There you go.
And have some sort of angle, whether it's with Nigel McGuinness or not, that Bryan Danielson is going to appear to hang them up. But I don't agree with you that if he loses, that's the last we'll ever see of him.
Can I throw this idea out there?
Yeah, of course.
What if you do the Nigel McGuinness angle, but it's after Danielson wins? Like this is Danielson's mountaintop. He wins the match in front of 50,000 people. He has the belt. You know, He goes over to the announce table and starts celebrating with people on the announce table. And then McGuinness sweeps him off his legs while he's celebrating and starts going after Danielson. He's had enough. You mentioned that story with him of like, he's seen this guy succeed and have all the success. And finally he has this success at the biggest stage. He's like, you know what? I'm tired of seeing this guy succeed. I want my moments. So I'm going to go and attack Danielson. You live up to that stipulation. You have a match set up as well. You get the program going between Danielson and McGuinness. You don't have to worry about adjusting to any sort of stipulation. And you can still do the stuff with the Hangman and Swerve deal. and that story. Let me throw that idea out there, and I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea because you still have Hangman and Swerve.
Yep.
And I think we could go back now and discuss, is there somebody else ready for a world title shot down the line that you could give to somebody that's like a Money in the Bank, that they don't have to cash it in right away, that it elevates them. Maybe it's Ricochet. Maybe it's Orange Cassidy. Maybe it's Adam Cole. Correct me if I'm wrong too, like, not to rush people back, but I do think that there's a lot of potential for big things to happen. How long does it take to heal a broken leg?
I don't know off the top of my head. A couple of months, though. And I'm sure that Adam Cole is fitting on that recovery timeline quite well.
Well, how about another guy's name that starts with Adam Copeland?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Adam Copeland. All right.
It was about 3 months ago that he broke his leg. Now, I understand it's a pretty serious break. I understand he's, not the youngest cat in the world. Can relate, but it doesn't mean he's got to wrestle. And it doesn't mean he can't come back and do something to set something up where he gets another month. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the CM Punk thing. CM Punk basically came back months before he was actually ready to go. They just protected him, and then he got hurt again. And Drew McIntyre hurt him, but he was on TV. Could we see Adam Copeland back? I think there's a lot of possibilities between Ricochet and Adam Cole and Adam Copeland and guys to come back that could be other winners of that gauntlet match. And so you can still have Swerve and Hangman in a blood feud, and it's still like main event caliber stuff. If Swerve and Hangman are fighting after this pay-per-view and it's not for the belt, I don't care. I'm still invested.
Yep.
And so now, as you mentioned, you could have Nigel McGuinness attack Bryan Danielson. Is Nigel McGuinness next in line? Do they do that match before Danielson actually goes away in a few months after this run? Is that the in-between couple of months that they end up doing before he drops it back to Swerve or wherever they're going to go with it? Where's Jon Moxley, by the way? And why wasn't he out with the Blackpool Combat Club in the World Trios Championship and Pac was a part of it? What's going on there?
Sounds like he's taking some time off, but what's the storyline aspect, I guess, is what you're asking.
Yes, it is. And is the storyline aspect that Bryan Danielson wins and Jon Moxley's part of the world title picture coming up? I don't know. Blackpool Combat Club members against each other for a while. I just think that there's so many possibilities. And I think it's 50-50. And I love it. I know Bryan Danielson is the odds-on favorite to win this match, like on the betting line, but it's not like stupid crazy either.
Right.
It's like minus 300, I think is the last I saw. No, that's a big favorite, but it's not like this overwhelming favorite, because if you bet on Swerve Strickland, it's just plus 200. It's not that much. And I'm trying to give you so Will Ospreay is minus 1,200, which basically means you have to spend $1,200 to win 100. Okay. He is a big favorite.
Yeah.
That's a massive favorite. Mariah May is minus 700. You got about $700 to win 100 if Mariah May wins. So what I'm telling you is that the world title match is one of the smallest sort of gaps, because I think people actually don't know, and I love that. So I like your idea. I think it's very possible. Could you change my mind before Sunday? Yeah, you probably could. I'd have to think about it a little bit. I just think Bryan Danielson is going to kind of go away. He's just not going to fully go away. And he's still going to be able to have like a program with Nigel McGuinness and a couple of other things, and they can kind of do it right. It doesn't feel like, I just think the benefits of Swerve winning. I mean, the more you talk about it with me, the more I'm starting to like what you're saying here. And I know the podcast is ending, so it's like, do I need to make a decision here on Bryan Danielson winning? All right, Zach, for the benefit of the program, I'm going to pick Bryan Danielson and have Zach McGibbon change my mind on the show. That is the power of influence.
Wow.
Well, I feel it. Yeah. So I feel like that's a win-win for me. If Bryan Danielson does win, then I was like, Zach, you were right, and I was right to follow such a, like, I had the strength to not just live and die by my own sword. And it's like the mistake that I made. No, it's like teams. They take a big gamble on a guy.
Yeah.
Or they draft a guy, and then all they do is push them down your throat all the time. Like, double down, triple down on the guy because you don't want to admit you actually just made a mistake. So I got that going for me. If Bryan Danielson wins, it's like, yeah, you made some good points, and I was smart enough myself to actually listen to somebody. But then if he doesn't win,
you have your scapegoat. Yeah.
Forced me to change my mind. Like, folks, you're not seeing behind the scenes some of the emotions that he's doing to, like, actually intimidate me to make the selection.
That's right.
And so the pick that I was going to do, and Zach McGibbon changed my mind. Oh, that's not my fault. That's not my fault at all. So I am going to pick Bryan Danielson.
Love it.
But I don't think he's going to get too much of a. He's going to get the yes moments and all his moment, but I don't think it's going to be the same as like Sting's moment or like going out on, like, they're not ending the pay-per-view with him in the crowd. I think something will happen that has either Nigel McGuinness or even Swerve or Hangman or somebody out there and saying that we're not going to let it go off the air like this. So anyway, I'll pick up Bryan Danielson.
There you go.
Okay.
The Zach McGibbon influence is strong. I love it.
Strong. Okay. So is there anyone else that you think is possible? I mentioned Ricochet, Adam Copeland, Adam Cole, Bobby Lashley, I guess his name is out there still. I would put those four in and say, is there anyone else that you think could be there?
No, the two for me are Hangman and Ricochet. I think that those are the stronger candidates.
Well, Hangman's going to be there.
Yes.
Like, he's in the gauntlet match, right?
Yes.
So
if you're asking about surprises, I could totally, obviously Ricochet would be one of them. I could see an Adam Cole if they wanted to. I think that could be a fun little surprise. You could do like the Adam Cole Ricochet stare down in the in that gauntlet as well. Get that sort of visual. I don't really see a Bobby Lashley debuting here at this point. I think they'll save him for TV for his debut. So yeah, I guess the two I'll go with is Ricochet and Adam Cole. I could totally see Adam Cole coming back here.
Yeah, as could I. So all in all, Zach, get that? All in all?
Very nice.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, a wonderful day of wrestling. I think it's cool for people in North America to be able to watch this sort of in the afternoon and not really worry like it's 1:00 in the morning and I got to go to work tomorrow and it's a 9-hour show and all of that stuff. I think it's exciting for people to be able to have a show that you can just kind of kick back in the afternoon and watch. So I think that's awesome. And I really hope they do well. Like, I'm cheering for them. Not that I cheer against the WWE, like, well, maybe I do. But I'm cheering for them, but it doesn't mean, folks, just because I want them to do well, and I think you feel the same, just because I want them to do well doesn't mean they're going to do well. It's kind of like our friends, like Chris Thompson and Ben Sublier. Like, we watch a WWE show and like Chris Thompson, like, that's the best show ever. You're like, actually, it was the worst show ever. And then,
did he say SummerSlam was the best show ever?
No, but
okay, I was gonna say,
but I think he held back some of the thoughts of how good it was.
I see. Yeah,
because he didn't want to get reamed out by people smarter than him, which is most people, but us in particular. But then there's the other side, right? There's the AEW Ben Sublier group of AEW people that they can just do no wrong. It doesn't matter if it was bad. They'll find a way to tell you, actually, no, because this is what they meant. And this is, that went over your head and you're not quite bright enough. It's like, I know I'm not bright, but I still need to get it.
Yes.
And that actually sucked.
Yeah.
And so I like that we're kind of we're the mushy middle. You know what I mean, Zach?
We just piss everybody off. That's what we really do.
Or we just tell it like it is.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, we're the realists.
Yeah.
And then we got people on each side that are the homers.
That's right. Nothing wrong with loving your promotion. Just know that I could guarantee anybody that's listening to this show, whether it's been for 1 minute or 1 year or soon to be 5 years now with this show, that they have agreed with some and disagreed with some harshly of some of the opinions that we've given on this show.
Of course.
And that's fantastic.
The whole point of not all of this show, but most podcasts and radio shows and all kinds of things, you're supposed to be able to make up your own mind and get a whole bunch of different ideas thrown at you so you can make up your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do here. We just discussed a number of possibilities in that main event. And I think a number of possibilities throughout the show. And it doesn't mean they're all going to happen.
Yep.
But it means maybe you thought about it one way and we presented a couple things that are like, yeah, maybe I need to rethink that. And that's the whole point. That's the beauty of it. And I think this is going to be, especially the big Okada match coming out, I think it's going to be a massive... Oh, sorry, he's not on the card,
what?
Zach.
I was going to say, let me scramble over and get my card here. Yeah, again, which one is going to be more likely to get people talking after the show? Would it be the ladder match or would it be the Okada match? Anyways, I'm not going to reopen that. I've already been losing my mind the last couple of weeks.
To have people talk about it on TikTok or Instagram or like...
I'm surprised that point really had resonated with people. It is pretty funny. TikTok and Instagram reels is what they book for. I mean,
well, and that, quite frankly, like, let's not, disclude AEW. Like, that's
when they decide to actually, upload their stuff. Like, there was a time on their YouTube shorts where they legitimately didn't upload a YouTube short for like 8 months. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah. But the point of having these ladder matches in the big spots, as you said, is so that they can get them over on these type of mediums.
Yeah.
It's not to tell you that this was an unbelievable match, but as you said, if 19-year-old Nick Wayne does something crazy and he's been on TV for a year, then they're going to push it. So anyway, it should be a great show. I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't looked forward to a show like this in a very long time. And I have a feeling that we'll have a lot to talk about as soon as Sunday night or Monday night next week.
I'm looking forward to that. Should be good.
Oh, that should be great. All right. So for Zach McGibbon, I'm Lee Versage. Thanks for listening to the All In preview for AEW coming up this weekend. And 0 Hour begins at noon Eastern time. Is that correct, Zach?
I think it's a 2-hour pre-show. I think it might be 11.
Oh, 11. Yeah. Oh my God.
So there might be some more matches announced. So
right. And then the card starts early in the afternoon. Again, if you want to watch it with most of us, send Zach a message. Send me a message. We'll see if
that's funny you mentioned that, by the way, because Ben messaged me. He's like, I wasn't aware this was happening, where we were opening it up even more. So news to him when he heard it on the podcast.
Yeah. That's like, Zach, when wrestling companies, especially WWE, let's say they come into the Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Do you think the Canadian Tire Center tells the WWE what to do? Or do you think the WWE actually tells the people in the Canadian Tire Center what to do? Which one do you think?
I think it's the latter option there, Lee.
Yeah. Well, Ben, you're the CTC and I'm the WWE. Okay?
I don't know if I want that comp, but sure, I'll take it.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
I decide if people are coming, you just get to be there. You're lucky you get to be there.
Grace in my presence.
Anyway, the point is that what Ben didn't understand is that while people have messaged, there's a very strict screening process.
I see. Okay, good.
Okay, very strict.
Right.
Like, I got to deal with Le Champion and have him talk about the WWE while an AEW card is going on for 4 or 5 hours. I'm already at, like, my patience is gone. And I haven't even got there yet. Okay. Thank God there's smart people like Tanner going, and the rest of the crowd, and Arjun, and Holsky, and like some smarter people who know when to be quiet and just watch the match and stop telling me about the bash in Berlin and how great it's going to be. We'll preview that coming up in
God, I can't wait.
Can Randy Orton win? No.
Yeah, I'm really trying to break that down for how long we've got here, an hour and a half.
Point being is, I don't care what Ben Soublier said or Chris Thompson. I care what we say. Screening process is tough, but if you want to get in, send Zach a message, send me a message, and we'll talk about getting in.
There you go.
But it should be fun Sunday afternoon, and I promise you we'll be back on This Is Wrestling to break it all down. And no matter what, there's going to be a lot to talk about. If it's great, if it's not great, if certain angles are going on, there's going to be a ton to talk about regardless. So really looking forward to that. So for Zach McGibbon and Lee Versage, thanks for listening to This Is Wrestling.